Welcome to the Electric Spirit Podcast. I'm your host, psychic medium Jamie Lynn. Today, we welcome back to the show UFO author and researcher Preston Dennett and contactee Dolly Safran. Preston and Dolly are here to do a Q&A with questions submitted by the listeners. Preston's latest book is called Symmetry, a True UFO Adventure. It tells the story of a UFO experiencer named Dolly Safran. Dolly's journey began when she was just 10 years old and has continued throughout her life. Today, Dolly will talk about the motives for the alleged appearance of aliens on the planet Earth. Preston began investigating UFOs and paranormal in 1986 when he discovered that his friends, family, and coworkers were having dramatic, unexplained encounters. Since then, he has interviewed hundreds of witnesses and investigated a wide variety of paranormal phenomenon. And welcome back to the show, Preston Dennett and Dolly Safran. Today we welcome back to the show Preston Dennett. He's a UFO author and researcher, and contactee Dolly Safran. And I'm glad you guys are back. We have a lot of great questions from listeners. I don't know if you want me to just dive right in. I could start asking.
I love questions.
Okay. Yeah. One of the questions comes from her initials are DL. And she just wondered, Dolly, what your story was. You were a contactee from your book Symmetry that Preston wrote. You were the subject of the book. And she just wondered, what are the ethics of, I don't want to say taking, but it would be taking, not abducting, taking, humans. Do we somehow subconsciously give our consent for that, or?
Okay. Let me explain this real quick.
Okay.
While we are not fully awake and fully conscious beings here, because we're not utilizing our abilities fully like we should be, we're easy to lose information. In other words, our physical mind is not in constant contact with our consciousness. And we seem to absorb things in a dreamlike state. That's why at night you dream. You're not really, a dream is not what you think it is. It is your OBE, your consciousness is talking to you and it's doing things. And while you're unconscious, you have a closer ability to hear and see what your consciousness is doing, but it's still not fully connected between the two of you. You're physical and conscious at the same time. You have a physical mind and a conscious mind, and the link is your pineal gland. And if you're not transmitting to yourself properly, you're a computer without direction. You're an intelligent computer, but you're still a computer because your body is a biologically functioning car for you to drive around in while you're here in this dimension.
I see. Okay, interesting.
So what happens is consciousness for you is giving permission. Your consciousness knows who ET is. Your consciousness is in contact with them fully, but your brain is not remembering it because it's not getting the link up. When they contact you, they do have permission from your consciousness, your higher self, as to what you're doing. Either people try to hold on to the memory, or they consciously, because they know something's happening, will say, I really, really need to remember this, and will intend. Intention is the first link up with your pineal gland to your consciousness. You intend for something to happen, and then it does. I suggest that everybody start trying that more. If you're a contactee and you know it, but you can't seem to wrap yourself into it because it's dreamlike or you're forgetting things, you meditate every day for at least 10 minutes and set the intention in your mind. I will remember. It helps and it does work, and you'll start seeing what's really going on, your physical mind, because it's contacting what's really happening. ET doesn't abduct anybody. They do have full consent from your consciousness. We know them, they know us, they are us, we are them, and we're all one in the grand scheme of this universe, and we're related. They're not coming here to abduct you and do experiments on you and horror, put you in a horror show. The only reason you think that's happening is because you live a life of subjugation. Here, fear is promoted, horror is promoted, hate is promoted, division is promoted. We are in a swell on this planet of negative information. This is not what they're about. They are trying to help us. They have been for a long time. They have always been our helpers throughout the entire of our history and other histories with us in other places. And it is to protect our DNA while you're contacted. That's the number one reason. And to
Can
help
I
teach.
jump in here real quick? Just to underline what Dolly's saying, just real quick.
Yeah,
because,
of course. Jump in whenever
Yeah.
you can.
I mean,
Thank you. Yeah.
do we give permission? Yeah, this is the single, I think, underlying most
Mhm.
controversial aspect of UFO contact. And I hear it all the time from contactees. I did not give permission for this. I feel like this is being done against my will. This is what a lot of contactees will say initially when they are starting to be taken on board. But I can tell you that most of the people I've talked to who have had repeated experiences at some time will come around to the understanding that they did in fact give permission. And like Dolly says, you know, there is a part of you which is giving permission. People have mixed feelings all the time. Part of them is like entranced and like, wow, this is great that it's happening to me. Another part is in mortal terror. We compartmentalize our consciousness to a degree. So it's causing this sort of conflict. I agree with Dolly. People do give permission. A lot of people don't have that awareness or understanding in the beginning. But yeah, this is, I mean, at a very high spiritual level, we give permission to every single experience we have.
Okay, yeah.
Most enlightened masters will say that. And that's true with the UFO contact experience.
Cool. I think the other question, part of the question was if you're a minor, do the parents give consent to maybe
Yes,
subconsciously? Okay.
I gave consent as well. I am a parent and my child was in contact also and at first I went with her. I work with ETs, so I have more contact than most people, but I would still ask, would I allow? And I would not allow her to be in contact unless I was present. I'm a very fierce mom. And so I stayed with her until she was old enough to make up her mind for herself, consciously with knowledge. Okay. This is the most significant part of parenting there is. We have the right, we're autonomous being, but our children belong to us at first because it is our responsibility to teach and guide and protect them. And we do give consent and it is known. And while you're on board, you are with your child at all times. And now, sometimes when I was young, I wasn't on board with my parents. I was on board with my liaison and my person, and that was Mama. Mama took care of me in my mother's stead while I was on board. And she took care of me just as if she was my parent. And my mother, without consciousness of it at first, and then when she finally figured it out, she went, oh my God, had given permission for me to be with Mama. So.
Wow. That's cool. And this also comes from DL. What is their primary message to us?
That this strikes right at the heart of the whole thing. We need to realize that we are not awake and that fully operating consciousness, in other words, we're right on the verge of it. It's starting to happen more and more and more because more people are starting to get the message from them. And that is, we are all together in this. We're related to one another. We are not against each other. We shouldn't be. ET is not against us in any way. We have a problem with it sometimes. And that they want us to wake up. They want us to fully realize who we really are. They want us to fully join with them in knowledge and work our way up to where they're at. We've been here kind of not doing that. We're a slow group, and it's time to wake up and realize just what it is you have at your fingertips with your ability to learn and do and be. And it's a wonderful place to be in life and joy, and they want us to hurry up and figure it out. And that means give up the negativity on this planet, give up the fear on this planet, learn to see what's really going on, learn the truth. And the only way you can do that is to develop your abilities. You have to. It's how you wake up.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can,
Well, go ahead.
can I also respond to that?
Oh yeah,
Because,
definitely. Please.
this is,
Yeah.
you can easily find this out for yourself, what the ET message is, by looking at firsthand cases of contactees. I've interviewed a lot of them. And the first thing ETs will tell a person is, have no fear. Do not be afraid. No harm will come to you. This is absolutely universal. And people do have a strong fear reaction at times. And this is when they start to miss out on the good stuff, the tour of the craft and going to the observation deck and going to the control room and getting the more information, which the ETs will tell you. And it is universal. They are telling people all kinds of messages. And the message is, stop messing around with nuclear materials, nuclear weapons, anything nuclear they're very concerned about. They're very concerned about how we treat each other, the greed, the corruption, the aggression, our warlike ways. They're very concerned with how we're treating the environment, pollution, and the chopping down of forests, and so forth. And as Dolly says, their message is to wake up to your own heritage. We are you, you are us, we are one. That is a message almost every contactee will get at some point. And to our own, I don't like to call them psychic abilities because they're just natural human abilities. And Dolly mentions this over and over. They are trying to wake us up to our ability to do telepathy, clairvoyance, healing, mediumship, astral projection, physical levitation. No kidding. There are things, we are almost unlimited in what we can do. And they're really trying their darndest to wake us up to that. That's their message. That's their agenda.
Wow, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that. And this also comes from DL. Did they want you to tell your story, Dolly?
I have been with them for so long, and I've been learning so much from them. And I woke up myself one day and realized, it's getting worse here. Every time I'm around everybody here, I feel it, what's coming. I know what's coming. I'm psychic. And I started talking to my contacts about the fact that who's talking about this? Who's actually trying to give the message? And pretty much it's very few. It's a scattered few. And I had this overwhelming desire to start talking. And they immediately started briefing me on what that meant, what challenges I would face, what things that I would need to practice myself here to protect myself and things like that. They briefed me on it for a while and then left it in my lap and said, okay, call the ball. What do you want to do? And I decided this is it. I did this full well knowing that I was going to cut myself off somewhat because ETs are not here right now. They haven't been here for about 2 years. And I knew if I grounded myself, I'm in it with you all until something happens. And I made the decision that that was okay. That seemed to be my purpose, that I couldn't possibly know or have learned all of this from them for no reason at all. And my purpose is this, to bring the message forward. They were real happy about it. I'm still in contact with them. They back me up and watch over me while I'm doing this, but I'm still, got to do what I have to do, my decision. And it's not easy because I tread carefully while I go through this. But it was all my idea.
Yeah, I like that question because, a lot of people are told by the ETs that now is not a good time to talk. And this is often initially right after their encounter. And I think it's a protective sort of measure because it's a lot to deal with on your own. But at some point, many people do get that message. It's time to go forward. A lady in Maine, they told her flat out, you need to start talking about us, which she thought was interesting because for years they said, no, now is not the time. I just covered a case in Arizona where the ETs pulled a person on board and said, you're not doing your mission. Your mission is to spread the word about the ET presence on our planet. That's definitely, my mission too. Yes, they do want people to know. They are taking all kinds of measures. They do what amounts to publicity campaigns or displays all over our planet, whether it's at schoolyards or driving movie theaters, or waves of sightings like the Belgian wave or the Topanga Canyon wave or Withville, Virginia, Hudson Valley wave. I mean, there's a bunch of areas where waves of activity have occurred because they are, in essence, announcing their presence, doing a grassroots campaign, going to person, saying hello. And yes, they do want people to talk, but only if they are at a place where they can do this safely for them.
Okay, because it was the second part of this question from DL again, because she says it sounds like the government doesn't want you to share your story. Is that true? The US
Yes.
government. Okay.
Yes. I've been,
Yeah.
well, the government's known about me most of my life. I'm watched. They've made 2 attempts to pick me up when I was younger. That can't happen anymore. And so I am very careful. I have a lot of knowledge that I don't bring forward for that reason. If I did, it would mean they'd come after me no matter what. And they have the ability to do that. As long as they can reasonably deny what I say or come after me with it, they're not trying to stop me. I realize at some point it might come to that because I will push back somewhat, and I have. So we'll just see. It's a game of meeting of the minds. What do you got? They control the media, to be sure. And at some point, what my ability to come out to y'all and talk like this is going to be stopped. And that's not too far off in the future, just so you know. And they are going to control 100% the media, and there won't be any more of this. So I'm fervent like now to get this out. That's why the book, that's why the YouTube videos and things like that, and talking to people. I know it's a spit in the bucket. I'm in my area and I'm going to as many people as I can. And I depend also on anybody else who knows this message to bring it out also. If you're sitting on it, don't talk. It's time. It's time to bring out the truth.
Yeah, the government, all of governments of the world are definitely covering this up. They have done their darndest to cover it up. And they basically spent a lot of our tax money, a lot of time, a lot of effort trying to discredit UFO witnesses, and said flat out, I mean, this was the whole purpose of Project Blue Book from the Air Force. If you think you've seen a UFO, you're either hoaxing, hallucinating, or misperceiving. And anyone who had good evidence, they really went hard at them for that. There is a cover-up. They don't want people to talk, but the cover-up is not doing so well. This subject is extremely popular. It's going mainstream. The truth cannot be hidden. It's very strong. Truth is indestructible. You can alter it, you can try to hide it, but sooner or later it's going to pop out like grass between, the cement. It comes out and blooms. So I'm not too worried ultimately. I think that there's no way you can hide the truth. Far, far, far too many people are having this experience. And like Dolly says, I do encourage people to talk about it. I really do, because if you're skeptical, I bet there's someone in your family, your friends, your coworkers who've had these encounters.
Right.
This is absolutely happening all over the world. It cannot be hidden.
I would like to use this opportunity to inject something into this conversation. There's a lot of disinformation about also, and I want everybody to critically use their common sense in regards to misinformation dialogue. If it sounds too phantasmagorical, and that's a word, okay? Question it. If it sounds magical or mystical or outside the realm of reason, question it. Think critically about what's being said to you about anything. I'm already starting to declare on certain platforms some of the misinformation that's out there, because some of it is too phantasmagorical, and people believe it, and it hurts my heart. Science isn't a big issue with a lot of people. They don't really learn it anymore, and so they don't have that foundational knowledge to back them up and saying you're full of it. So I'm starting to pinpoint things that are not true, that it's absolute misinformation. And one of them is there is no secret space program. There are no 20 and 20s going to Mars and coming back and being regenerated. Mars is a dead planet. It has a dead core. It has no magnetosphere, and gamma radiation fully hits it unimpeded. You wouldn't last 5 minutes there. There would be no time for you to do anything on that planet. You could, if you made it there and landed there, you'd be dead 5 minutes after you got there. There's no shielding for this. That is science. It is fact, and it is knowable science. Look it up. There are also other things that I've been talking about for years, and I'm going to start putting them out of my videos because I want to give you hard proof. I want to show you documentation from scientists across the globe so that you understand what I'm saying is true. We have to critically eyeball people who are just weaving yarns about people and places and things that just are not so. And it's not hard to understand. If you look at who we are and how we operate, don't stick our issues up on ET. They're not the same as we are. They're at least 1 billion or more years ahead of us. They're highly advanced, intelligent, morally responsible people. And they have no harm on them whatsoever to inject at us. There are no space wars going on over this planet. Trust me, this universe is vast, and there is untold, uncountable numbers of people on them. There are planets galore everywhere, and Earth is just one teeny little microscopic part of that. And so there's no fight over us whatsoever, or resources or anything. They exist universally everywhere. ET can travel anywhere in this universe that they want to go, and they're not limited to what they can get off of us. I want everybody to start seeing the truth of that.
That's good. And then this comes, I'm kind of jumping around. This comes from Richard, and you answered part of his question. He asked if there is a government cover up, and you said, I think you said yes, right? But he wonders why there is. Why you believe there's a cover-up?
I don't believe it, I know it. Okay. And it's for one reason. I've lived with this my whole life. I've known about it for quite some time. And that is, if you understand what's happening to our solar system right now, with regards to our sun in our galaxy, we've come in contact, every 12,000 years, we come in contact as we revolve around in our galaxy. A electromagnetic current sheet is vast, and we're not the only solar system that this is affecting. There are plenty more than us in this galaxy. It causes our poles to change, our sun to change, and when our poles are changing, it lowers our magnetosphere's ability to block incoming radiation, solar flares, and solar wind, and it can barbecue us. There is no such thing as global warming because we did it. No, not at all. This big planet's been around a lot longer than you think, and it has gone through these gyrations of 12,000 year cycle, 6,000 also, and a 4,000 year cycle. We are being bombarded by radiation. Our sun is giving off CMEs, coronal mass ejections, which are solar flares, and the coronal holes are making it worse. With the electromagnetic current coming in and our poles going down, we're not fighting anything the sun is giving us. We are electromagnetically charged by our own sun. And when our poles are down, our planet will actually react to it. An electrical charge will come down from the sun in a CME, and our planet will electromagnetically give back. One of those inferences is like when I was little, there was no such thing as lightning, ground to ceiling lightning. It was rare, hardly ever happened. It happens all the time now, and that's our planet charging back to the sun. For every action, there is an equal or opposite reaction in energy, and our sun is number one above us. Our whole planet is in contact with the sun electromagnetically, and it is now pounding us. We have too much gamma radiation coming. All our seasons are changing. Our planet is starting to wobble another way. We're about to flip over because of it, and it's a big deal. And this is the 12,000 year cycle. Government doesn't want you to know about it. They've thrown smoke and mirrors to everyone for so long. Nobody's capable of making sense out of anything. And scientists around the world are owned by the governments of this planet. They give them funding money and withhold it from them if they don't talk from their narrative. Scientists don't have freedom of speech like you think you do. Way less.
Wow.
The reason that okay.
Now, the cover up is no joke. Everything
Yeah.
Dolly's saying, I totally agree with. It's nefarious, it's brutal, it's dastardly, and what's behind it, honestly, is money, greed, power, and fear. They know they are doing wrong. They know they are hiding all kinds of information, and they don't want people to know it. It's really that simple.
Right.
They are doing wrong. Our governments have never been truthful or transparent or forthcoming on this subject at all. This is not speculation. It's easily demonstrable. And it's a real problem. And this is one of the main reasons why we don't have open official contact, why we have unequal distribution of wealth, why we have divisiveness. And all the problems can be traced to these guys. Call them what you want, the 1%ers, the cabal, the secret government, the alt government. This is one of the biggest problems facing our planet. And yeah, they don't want anyone to know what's truly going on with, the sun and the solar cycles and the collapsing magnetic field and so forth.
And there is a reason why for this, and it's very, very simple. When all this starts happening, seeking safety or prepping for this is going to use world resources like you wouldn't believe. And the 1% cabal, those who are operating all of this against us, know this. They've been building underground shelters using our money to do it, our people to do it, our everything, all our resources to do it for themselves. There are seed depositories in 2 or 3 places on this planet. They think they have figured out how to survive it, and they're going to go down when it starts happening. We are expendable for 2 reasons. One, there are so many of us who know where they're at, would go after them when it happened, try to get in with them, and they want to stop that. Second one is that there is going to be worldwide calamity when this happens, and humans don't act well when they're in an emergency situation. They don't act well when they're hungry. They don't act well when they're looking for resources that are suddenly gone. So they've decided to just alleviate themselves of as many people as they can until this happens, and it's shortly coming, to do this. They planned this at least 60, 70 years ago, easily. I've known it most of my life. That's serious. I want you to sit and critically think about what's going on around you in the world. There are diseases, there's war, there's supply chains, things are breaking down. If you don't realize that there's about to be a famine, I feel sorry for you for not waking up to that. It's right before your very eyes. All you have to do is critically look at everything all at once and add it all up in your mind. There is ways for you to survive this, what's happening. We can do it on our own. We don't need them. We don't need them to tell us what to do. We can do it on our own. And ET knows this. And ET does send those messages to us, but we have to hear them. They clearly are teaching what to do to survive it. Because in the end, they're not here right now, okay? They can't be, because the electromagnetic currents on this planet have gone haywire and they can't fly here. But as soon as they are able to, they will show up in mass all over the entire planet at one time, open their doors and say, get on, because it's not over after that. Once all this stuff starts, there's a huge climax to this, and it's not a pretty one. Our sun is about to micronova, and nobody's going to take that. Nobody, trust me. They'll get us off. They've done it every 12,000 years for 285,000 or million years on this planet alone. That's why there's so much history implanted on this planet, left for us to make those connections and understand what's really going on. Archaeological, everything. And they know it, and they don't want you to know it. And I'm not afraid of them. I have no problem telling you the truth. It is the truth. And I want you not to believe me outright. I want you to start digging for the truth. I want you to start looking, look up archaeological, put it all together in your head, see what's left. The pyramids have been there for more than 10,000 years. They've been there for close to 14,000 actually. And it's a pointer. All the pyramids on this planet line up certain ways. They give astronomical calculations. And the most important one that they all leave behind is the 12,000-year cycle. But they don't want you to know that. They don't tell you that part of it. They just leave you guessing. This is all real, and common sense should, I hope, start hitting everybody. Realize they're never going to tell you the truth. They don't want you to know the truth. Quit asking. Ask yourself to look up. Prove to yourself what's really going on. Look around at your individual situations, because there's going to be a lot happening, and you have to decide how you're going to deal with this. And it's your right to. They don't have a right to take those choices away from you. And that's what I'm teaching.
Yeah, I agree. And this comes from DL again. She says, it seems like a mass reveal is getting closer. Do you know a time frame for this?
There is no mass reveal. They're going to keep lying to you. What they are going to do is a false flag. They're going to make you think ET is here, and they're going to kill you to protect themselves and use their back engineered vehicles to slaughter people. ET is not here. Not at all. I'll give you example A. You remember the Starlink that went up and they lost 3 or 4 satellites in midair? They just exploded out of nowhere. There was nothing wrong with them. They were hit by coronal mass ejections in a M-class range, which is just enough to kill them, blow them right up. It is not safe in our air because of these CMEs. ET runs on similar electromagnetic guided craft, and it puts them at risk. That's why they've crashed so much in the last 50 years, and they can't do it anymore. It's not worth it to them to keep pounding the ground because they can't stay aloft. That's why.
Because this listener also talked about like a false flag from the government. Is that kind of what you're talking about, that they're going to
Yes,
do
and they've
that?
already started launching it. Look at the the balloons that they're shooting down, and they've outright started calling them UAPs or UFOs. They are not. It's all our own equipment.
So that's what we're watching for. I didn't mean to interrupt. That's the false flag, that kind of thing. Right.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of buzz about that in the UFO community.
Yeah. Sorry, Preston.
No worries. It's pretty apparent that our governments are putting forth a false ET threat narrative. I just want to underline the fact that ETs have been around for a very long time. They are not here to take over. There's no good evidence of this. Our media is very fear-based. Society is very fear-based. And our government is pushing forth a false narrative. It's not true. Do not believe for 1 second ETs are here to hurt us. It's just not true.
So that's basically the people are maybe making us think they're here to hurt us. That's maybe the people in the government, because
there's an agency that does it. It's called My Lab.
Okay. Interesting.
And they're diabolical in what they're doing. They have no regard for humanity at all whatsoever. They're spreading their narrative, and they'll torture you to do it. So
I see. And the other part of the question from DL, how do we know what's authentic? Because there's like false reveals going on, sorry. And so how do we know what's authentic?
Well, it's going to get harder and harder to say, because if you listen to the government, you're going to buy hook, line, and sinker everything they're saying. That's why you got to turn that off. When you see a picture of something, take a class, learn about photography or graphics or, CGI, that kind of thing, all right? And learn to understand what you're looking at. I will tell you this, a real craft, an honest to God craft, you can't miss it for what it is. It is not lumpy, bumpy, or tic-tac. It is big, round, and smooth. It has no outlier bumps on it at all. The smaller ones that come down do have one antenna that go up, and it's because they've got to read the magnetic field lines, and I call them the two-seaters, or Lazar calls them the sports model, okay? They only have ports either midline, across like this, or at the very top. That's it. Everything underneath the craft is up flat while they're in space. When they come down into our atmosphere, they have what they call a drop down, and that's because they're going to battery power. It's because they cannot be fully charged in this atmosphere and not hurt you. So they have to change the system in which they use for power. It's graviton magnetars. In other words, they have waveguides. They use graviton generated electricity. It's so powerful, it creates the wave that protects them and takes them up and around, do whatever they want. All ET craft are capable of three things. One of them is speed. They can go from 9,000 miles an hour to Mach 14 in less than 1 second. They can pivot, turn up or down in less than a second. They can they can outmaneuver anything that is on this planet. They can suddenly go and disappear right before your very eyes or come back. They do not ever come down in populated areas while they're hot. It would hurt you. They have huge amounts of energy surrounding it. The electromagnetic fields that support them are dangerous for us. They have to cool off. So you'll never see one just suddenly come down and you can touch it. Fake, 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 not real. They do not land fully. They can, if they want to stay down for more than an hour, they will land. But they don't here because it's not safe. They only come to about 3 feet from the ground and they're charged. When you do that, you cannot touch them. It will hurt you. That's the point. They have a technology that can bring you on board without landing and you touching the outside of that vehicle. They have the ability to become interdimensional, even in our space. They can go through walls. I mean, it's incredible. So if you see shimmery lights in the sky and they're blinking and flashing and doing all kinds of things, I guarantee you're looking at either military craft, aircraft, conventional at very high altitude, and that sort of thing. The further something comes down, a pair of binoculars will show you what you're looking at, even at night if you have night binoculars. Everybody has to remember that airports do not have ETs flying around them at any time unless it's a display, and it's very far and few between. They're not doing it now, though, because they're not here. If you see something coming down and it's got rivets or it's matte black, triangular shaped or rectangular, run. It is not ET, it is us. There are TR-3Bs out there. The rectangular ones have laser cannons on them and they're crowd controllers, and it can come within 50 feet of you. This is not a joke. I mean, I could spend all day describing 1,000 ways. Another way to know you're looking at a real ET is they don't fly across like this. They fly like this. They belly up. And it's called skiffing, and that's how they ride the electromagnetic field lines of our planet. When they're in full skiff, they are capable of anything. And when I say anything, when they go from 0 to 14, well, they start at 9,000 miles an hour and then they go to 14. When something just goes boop and you think, ooh, where'd it go? It moved that fast. No conventional thing that this planet has, artillery-wise, even nuclear, can penetrate, bug them, or affect them in any way. The US, nobody on this planet can shoot one down. It is impossible. It has never happened. The only reason they've crashed is, like I said, our field lines are rotten and they've come down because of that. That's how you know if it really tees.
Yeah, there are sources of good information. I would just underline what Dolly's saying. No, do not look to the governments for answers on this. They've been lying from the beginning. They will continue to lie. That is not where you're going to find the truth about UFOs. Where you're going to find the truth is where we have gotten all of everything we know about the ET presence in our planet. And that is from people who've had these experiences, contactees. If you want to find what's really going on, look at some of the research into that. And you have to be very careful because there's a lot of good researchers out there, but there's a lot of bad ones too. You have to learn to use your scientific knowledge and, as important, your intuition. This is why ETs are very much intent on trying to wake people up to their psychic abilities, because you do have the ability to see if someone's lying, to determine the truth. Truth has a certain resonance and vibration to it, if I can use those terms. So you have to look to yourself ultimately for answers. And again, everything we know about UFOs does not come from government. It comes from the people who've had encounters.
Right.
Interesting. And you've been doing this for 30 years, Preston, researching and that kind of thing. And I just had a question for you of my own. I was a paranormal investigator for a really long time, and we would debunk certain things that maybe happened when we were investigating. Is that what you do when you have somebody come to you saying they were a contactee? Is that what you did with Dolly, or how do you debunk things?
Oh yeah,
To know
I mean, I
people.
certainly go through a whole process of what I would call vetting a witness.
Okay.
Which, I don't want to give away all my secrets.
Right. No, of course not.
Because, but you
Yeah.
can, having done this a long time, you certainly get a feel for who's telling the truth or not. And this is partly intuitive, psychic, if you will, but certainly there's scientific approaches you can use. I always interview a person initially, and then a second time, and then a third time. Does their story change? Are they having genuine emotional reactions? Are they giving out details that are perhaps not well known in the media, which are consistent and oftenly reported in firsthand accounts? Do they have corroborating witnesses? Are they willing to, have their name behind their story, or are they so nervous about it they absolutely do not want any publicity at all? Because I can tell you that most people I interview, particularly if they've had very close encounters, will say something along the lines of, listen, I have not told anybody this. My spouse doesn't know. Or they'll go outside into the ice cold air to do an interview with me. They will say something like, I've got a good education. I have no history of mental illness in my family. Got a good job. There's all kinds of ways you can verify a person's story. And yeah, I've been called by a few people who I'm like, nice to know you, but I'm not, I won't tell them that, I think they're lying, because that's kind of rude, but I'm just not going to use their story because I think they're lying. And yeah, it becomes pretty easy to tell at some point when you do this long enough whether a person's story is genuine.
I see.
And Dolly was able to prove it to me. She has photographic evidence. She has multiple independent corroborating witnesses. She has medical documentation that's extraordinary. And she called down the UFOs for me, so I saw them. I've had that happen on a
That's
few
amazing.
occasions. So then it's not a matter of belief. It's, you know the truth because you are part of the experience.
Right. I also gave him full access to my entire life. I let him verify everything I say is true. That goes to where I went to school, where I lived, who I am, who my parents were. I gave him corroborating evidence for everything. There was no way he was going to believe my entire story on my word alone. So he did have access to everything, absolutely everything. So
that's amazing. And they obviously chose you, Dolly, to be a contactee, but I also wonder if they chose Preston to be in his role. And also it was no accident that you and Preston met, right? I sense with them, maybe it was planned.
I think so. They were real quick to name him to me. I went off on my own first and started looking at investigators and different people reporting it. And I was very disappointed. I was not seeing or hearing anybody willing to hear the truth or repeat it properly. And I was getting depressed. And I was on board one day and I was moaning about it. And Talata, who's my main contact, said, I think I know somebody who you would welcome to do this for. And I went, okay, who is he? And he said his name is Preston Dennett, spelled it for me. And he said, you need to write it down because I'm bad with names. I can remember numbers all day long, names no. And I did, I wrote it down. And he said, he's on YouTube, go look him up. So when I got home the next day, I started perusing YouTube for him. Boop, there he was. And I found his playlists and I went and found the very, very first video I could find on him. And it was him giving a dissertation on his book about healings, ET healing. And I listened to the whole thing and my jaw hit the ground. I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. He tells the truth. He repeats exactly as he's been told. He has unbelievable amounts of information in his head. He can draw from almost anything. And I was like, okay, whoop, there it is. And I sent him an email, and he contacted me in less than 24 hours by email and said, okay, let's talk. And it just went from there. I think he vetted me for almost a full 5 years before he published. That's saying something. And I appreciate it totally. I wasn't really ready to just jump out there in front of everybody. There was a lot for me to consider, and it took me a while to explain to him everything because it's extensive. And I was still vetting him somewhat too, and
Yeah, it's a two-way street.
Right. Were you surprised, Preston, that they knew about you, or did you kind of have an idea?
I kind of had an idea, though it was still thrilling and wonderful and humbling and an honor to hear that. Absolutely, because I had another contactee tell me essentially the same thing. And having interviewed a lot of people, I did get several times indications that the ETs did know about me. But to hear, Dolly saying, well, they called you by name and basically referred me to you, that was amazing. And it happened, I remember not long after that, I got a call from a guy in England. I love this story because it's just funny to me. He was all kind of bent out of shape. He had an encounter with the Greys. They had a long meeting with him and basically told him that we're heading for some real intense times up ahead, and warned him about wars and nuclear proliferation and the messages they give people. And he asked me, this guy's from England. He doesn't know me. I don't know him. He asked me, have you heard of this? Do they give these kinds of messages? And I said, oh yeah, they sure do. This is the number one message they give people. He was going down the list. And so I counseled him. That's my primary goal, is really just to help people who are having these experiences. And we talked for an hour, maybe two, and we were getting ready to hang up. He said, I have one more thing to tell you. Like, okay. He says, my encounter occurred this morning, was with Greys, and they told me, we want you to contact this gentleman in the US, and gave him my name. When I heard that, I'm like, okay, that's 3 times. They know about me. This is really cool. I've had my own sightings. I've had a missing time encounter. I know they know about me, but to know that they know about my research and basically my mission here to educate and help people is so cool. I'm so honored. It's awesome.
That's really cool. I love that. So I actually found you, Preston. I didn't want to bring this up. I actually found you. Well, I happened to turn on the TV, and I don't watch this show, but I was watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians. It came on, and they were actually talking to you. And I thought, that guy looks really cool. I'd like to interview him. And I had no idea that you were doing all this either. So it's really interesting how life works,
Yeah, I was so shocked when they called me. I'm like, what? Okay.
Yeah, that was funny. And you mentioned that you vetted Dolly for about 5 years with your book. And one of my questions is, how long did it take both of you to write Symmetry?
Oh, yeah.
Preston wrote the book. He took our interviews are taped, all of them. And he transcribed them, and then he wrote the book. I gave him full permission because I trusted him. And then he came back to me and showed me what he had written and let me go through it and make corrections if there were mistakes. And then he published after he vetted it a couple more times, the writer's process. But he wrote it. He owns it. I gave him full permission. It's his book about me. And I fully understand what that means, and I'm thankful for it.
Right, of course.
It took hundreds of hours of interviews, and that's not an exaggeration. I didn't record 100 hours, but gosh, I don't know, dozens of hours recorded. And Dolly speaks real fast, by the way. So transcribing those interviews was a real challenge. And I kept wanting to get more details. So the whole process took, 3, 4, 5 years of interviews. But once I had all the material, that's when the fun begins. It takes me about 6 months to a year, depending. I did it a little faster because I felt a sense of urgency and timing. with Dolly's story, because there's none out there quite like hers. There's a few. There aren't a lot of what I would call fully conscious UFO contactees who have no fear, who have not used hypnotic regression, and who have had that level of experience. So I did feel urgency to get her story out as soon as possible. I could have spent a lot more time and made that book twice as long. And so we're probably going to put out a sequel at some point. But yeah, it took years for that book. It was the most difficult book I think I've ever written, because it was a lifetime of experiences that had to be sorted out. And, what do you put in? What don't you? There's some sensitive information, which just, it's not going to be revealed, because Dolly knows a lot more than she's publicly revealing. She's had a lifetime of experiences.
Right,
so yeah,
exactly.
It's a difficult project, to say the least.
It's a really great book,
Oh,
Symmetry, and people can find it on Amazon, right?
Yes.
That's
that's
where I
right.
got it. It's really good. It's worth a read. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Awesome. I love
Mhm.
that.
Yeah. Here's another question. What are crop circles and how are they made and what is the purpose? Do you know anything about those? Are they related to the ETs or?
Go ahead, Preston. You know the stats.
I'm not a crop circle researcher. I've certainly been watching it, and I was always puzzled by them because, to tell you the truth, the majority of these don't have an overt UFO connection. And by that, I mean, people generally don't see a craft above them sending out a beam of light, so to speak, and drawing on the wheat or corn or whatever it is. It's clear to me that these are genuine. There's been some really good scientific study of these, the plant life, and have they been exposed to some form of radiation or what have you, because you can tell genuine crop circles from fake ones. This is a real phenomena, and it is not being caused by Doug and Dave with 2 planks of wood and a piece of string. I think they are meaningful. I think they are probably being caused by ETs. Dolly would know better than me, because I don't have, she was there. I I do think, though, yeah, that it is ET related.
ET crop circles are put there for a purpose. There are mathematical calculations coded into them that are authentic. A physicist, a high mathematician would be able to read what those are after studying it, and they have. The Voyager, the 2 that they sent out with the message, on the gold disc and the plaque on the side, sent a message to ET that if you're reading this, please reply. And they did. And they sent a crop circle exactly back the way that one was sent to them. It was coded. It was in like a similar, positive, negative programming. And they sent a picture of their face and as well. And that blew everybody off the charts. But the governments kept making everybody think that we don't know, plausible deniability, we're not sure, but they're not telling you that every one of their scientists went, oh hell, this is real, okay? Because the messages were clear and they were there. Some of them were astronomical calculations. Some of them were purporting what's going on with the 12,000 year cycle. Absolutely. Some of them were describing mathematical calculations that anybody could use or learn to use toward understanding them better. And yeah, so a lot of them are real. I haven't seen every single crop circle there is, so I can't give you a percentage, but I'm saying at least 75% of them are ET driven. So
I would agree with that. Yeah. You can see how extraordinarily complex they are, and they're so beautiful. It's pretty easy to tell the fake ones from the real ones. And it's a worldwide phenomena and largely unprecedented. I mean, there's indications of similar formations in history, but not like we're seeing today.
Yeah. That's interesting. I always thought crop circles were cool, It's like Really neat. Have they shared any information on sound healing? I don't know if you, I'm sure you guys know the sound bowls. Did they share any information on that or?
ET uses
Mhm.
that technology as well as light technology. And the two are related to one another because a vibrational signal creates a certain amount of light. Everything is light in our universe. We're light. Every particle in our body is a form of light. We're just so densely packed here because of gravity, our gravity, that we don't see it from one another. There are people who are aware and enlightened and are using their abilities and see it as auras around your body. And they can see auras around almost everything. They see energy quite easily because of that. So yes, vibrational healing does exist. Vibrations can be weaponized though. And our governments around the world have learned to do that. And I wouldn't recommend right now because of everything that's going on. Like if you know somebody who heals, let them heal you. Okay, let them help you heal. Because healing is a two-way street. You have to desire the healing. You have to be aware of what's going on with you and understand it, and then accept the energy transfer from another person. You have to intend for this to work right. That's a really big thing. You can't go disbelieving into a healing session. You have to be ready for it. You have to be willing to accept it, because your natural energy fields of your own will block anything anybody has for you unless you let them in. That's important to remember. Yes, they do vibrational healing. Yes.
Well,
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah.
I'll underline that because, I did write a book. That was my first book, UFO Healings. I've reissued it, The Healing Power of UFOs, because there's 300 cases. And witnesses do describe this to me. One lady, I'll call her Wendy, had a horrific car accident in Georgia. Broken bones, lots of injuries of all kinds, ribs and lacerations, and they pulled her on board and used a lot of light. Light is one of their primary methods, but she said they also used sound. I thought that was really interesting. And when I spoke for the first time on my book about healings, a lady from the audience approached me. She was from Hawaii, and she had had an experience where she decided to use lime away and bleach and all this cleaners to clean her bathtub, and it created toxic fumes. And she breathed it in and fainted and was pulled on board. And she said the ETs had to use all kinds of methods, including sound. I have heard that a few times. It's not super common. Usually it's lights. Sometimes it's hands-on healing, by the way. It's not always technology that ETs will use.
Right.
But yeah, sound healing is well known here on Earth as well.
I want to bring this up. One of the ways that you can help heal yourself is to learn to meditate. And there are different philosophies or different approaches to this. The Om is really important to learn. There's a sound that we can create in our own throat and our own mind that has the frequency for healing in it. So when you meditate, use the Om, and you're inviting that vibration to magnify itself inside your own body, and with your own thought ability, you can heal yourself of almost anything, like addictions and things like that. You can calm yourself, you can do all kinds of things. And meditation is the foundation of healing, absolutely the foundation of it. It's the foundation of all psychic ability, because you have to be able to focus. So I want to push for that. Y'all start meditating, it's important.
Yeah, definitely. And one more question from DL. She had a lot. Have the ETs taught us, or you, Dolly, ways to raise our vibration that maybe we're unaware of as a human species?
The only way I can do that is to make you aware of your own vibration by teaching you about it. We are all responsible for what we do. We're here to learn something, and everything we do has to come from us. It is a job, it's work, but you gain wisdom from that, and that's important. Wisdom raises your vibration, and I can't give you wisdom. You must attain it for your own. That's why we go to the school of life here. It's hard. Yeah. It's not easy, and it requires studious work on our part. Most of it's mental. I mean, I'm not going to be carrying boulders around all day. That is hard. But mental work, yes, you can do it. You just have to sit down and understand what the steps are, explore them, teach yourself what they are. Use your own methodology of pass or fail. In other words, you do it. If it doesn't work, don't do it again. Try this until you get it for yourself. That's how it works.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and I would just like to jump in here because I've certainly researched this sort of thing, because I feel like it's part of my goal to become as spiritually enlightened as I can. You can raise your vibration using those terms in a number of different ways. One is leaving fear and negativity behind to the extent that you can. Commune with nature. Being with your pets, your dogs and cats will raise your vibration. Going out and looking at the flowers. Music has incredible power. Laughter, children, exercise, get enough sleep, have a good diet. These are all basic things you can do. These are pathways to healing. Meditation is paramount. It's one of the single things pretty much all religious disciplines, all spiritual disciplines agree upon, is meditation and prayer, this sort of thing. And I would absolutely encourage people to try astral projection, because that will open up your psychic abilities. That will bring all kinds of wonderful gifts of awareness and understanding. And just one more thing real quick is when people do have a UFO sighting or an encounter, they often describe it in the same way. They say it's like being woken up when you're already awake. They say it's like a mini enlightenment. People have told me, I don't know how to tell you this, but I was more aware than I have ever been. Energy flooded through me. So they're just being in their presence is a very much raising of thing. Your vibration, the company you keep, that's another thing. If you're in a toxic relationship, get out, be around people who love you and you love. And if you don't have anyone, well, be alone for a while. Turn off the TV. There are all kinds of things you can do. Nature is so important. Hug a tree. That's simple.
I would like to make a valid statement here, okay? You are mostly water. Our bodies are 87 point something water. And we all know that water vibrates at the frequency that it's receiving, whatever frequency is around us. So we're amplifiers for whatever is around us. If you have negative energy coming at you, the water in your body is going to negatively vibrate that way. It can ruin your day. It can make your mind clouded. It can F with you. Don't allow that kind of negativity. If somebody's yelling or screaming or having to, whatever, try to be calm in those instances. Back away a little bit and say, what can I do to help you? Because that helps their vibrational change happen. So you're helping them to heal as well as yourself. Walking out in the sun, like Preston says, in the earth, ground yourself. The vibration of this planet is the perfect vibration to set your body in the right vibration. That's what they mean. If you watch bad TV all day, if you play deadly games all day, if you listen to deadly, horrible, horrific things all day, you're going to vibrate at that frequency. Change it. That's the first dial you turn off, is the negative. Absolutely.
Thank you. I like what you added, Preston, too, and Dolly, about, staying positive. And it's interesting. It seems like they try to keep us in a negative state with all the negative things that happen, and they try to divide us. So what is your advice for that? I'm just curious. Ignore it.
Know thyself.
Yeah.
We are all human. ET are human as well. The human genome is universal. If you're alive anywhere in this universe, you have DNA, and it is the human genome. We have animals as well that we're related to. They have DNA. They're alive. It just, it dines out differently. The dial brings them to a certain code and us to a certain code. This does not make us diverse. It makes us one. We are all one. Never stop thinking about how different you are, and realize that we are one. And everything that happens to you happens to a lot of people around you, and it just spreads like wildfire. That's why the rock in the pond, with the ripples going out, we all affect one another. It is really important to realize that we are here to learn, and we're supposed to help each other do that. And you can't do that by being offensive and look for problems and hurt people and destroy them. This is very, 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 very hard to take as an entity, as a human being, all of us, even ET. And it's just not productive at all for yourself. If you still have the right to choose, let's be real about that. We're all autonomous beings. We all have the freedom of choice. We can choose whatever we're here to learn. But if you're here to learn to enlighten, go the path of the enlightened. Walk away from the negative. Like Buddha said, just let it go and move on.
Yeah, I mean, I recently heard about a gentleman who was convicted of a hate crime, and the sentence was he had to confront the person he had hurt and have a basic sit-down staring contest, stare into each other's eyes for 10 minutes. And he ended up breaking down into tears and apologizing profusely. Because what Dolly is saying is true. We are all one. We're a telepathic race. I would encourage people to look at the accounts of near-death experiences, NDEs, because it's really interesting what happens when you are at death's door and you are pulled out of your body and go to the other side. You're given a life review. What I love about the life review is you not only experience everything you went through, but you feel everything that you put upon other people. We are one, and you will, if you're doing bad, you can bet that you're going to get a wake-up call when you have your near-death experience. I interviewed a gentleman who had a near-death experience who told me, I was not a good guy. And people can talk about near-death experiences all they want, but it's that life review that nearly destroyed me, he said, because he had to feel everything, all the pain he inflicted on others. So just remember that we are one, and we are empathetic. We all have that ability. So it's really important that we recognize we are not different at all. We really aren't. We are so, there's no, the political parties, I won't call it race, but ancestries, whether you're short or tall, or what shape your body is in, or what age you are, or anything. These are minor differences. We are all entities, and it's such a wonderful gift to be part of this universe, because we have lifetimes, and we will be every single kind of creature there is in terms of an entity, whether it's black or white or
not just here on this planet here. You can be born into any place in this universe at your own will. After you leave here, you choose. And the reason you don't know that is because you're cut off right now. But the minute you hook up, you'll start to realize, oh man, I've been here, 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 and here. This is totally cool.
Yeah.
Work out your issues before you leave here. That's what I teach.
I agree with that. I have a person that I know, and he called me up. He's going to be on the podcast, and he had a near-death experience. And it's true what Preston said. I can confirm that you are held responsible if you aren't a good person. But he was, luckily, but somebody he knew wasn't. And he had some words about that, about what they could face when they go. So it's interesting. Yeah. I was going to ask another question from a listener named Kat. And she says, for those that are awakening to extrasensory abilities, how will that be utilized during troubling times?
It helps you to see beyond your reaction. The reaction that your physical mind has is one of immediacy. It'll jerk react because it's habitual thinking that your physical mind is capable of. Instead of reacting negatively, it'll take you into a place where you go, okay, let's look at what's really going on. It'll slow your mind down, and it'll make you more prepared to react in a better way, because that is important. That's the number one rule of being alive, is it's not what they're doing to you, it's how you're reacting to it. That's paramount, because you're the only one who's guiding this boat, you. And if you react negatively to that, you might escalate a situation, whatever. If you breathe, step back, and really look at what's going on with your abilities, you'll see, and you'll immediately see ways to work through it with somebody else, or in a situation, or a protective situation. That's exactly what it does. It gives you clarity of mind, and it's a good thing. It takes common sense and it multiplies it 1,000-fold. You literally become clairsentient. You can see with clarity everything around you and understand what's going on around you.
Yeah, I love this question because it speaks to a project I'm doing right now. I'm pretty much just about finished with a new book I'm calling Supernatural Survival, which is all about that. You do have the ability to have precognition of upcoming disaster. I can't tell you how many people have had their lives saved by listening to their intuition. It's really that simple. When you have intuition, pay attention. It's as important as it is to pay attention to what's going on around you, outside of you. It's equally important to pay attention to what's going on within you, because we all have spirit guides. We all have little voices that will warn us. And if you can learn to differentiate between your own thoughts and those little messages that are coming in, say, turn right here, don't turn left, stop the car. I remember once I was driving along the freeway and I just started to get danger signals. And I'm looking around thinking, well, everything's fine. But I slowed down and I slowed down more. I was in the fast lane. I'm like, well, I don't tailgate, but I'm going to put more distance between this car in front of me. And he did not see it. The car stopped ahead of him on the freeway and bam. And I had precognition of it. It's not the only time I've had this thing. I've, earthquakes, and this is largely from the astral projection, which I got really into. It will wake up this ability. But yes, pay attention. That would be the advice I give. You get a feeling, pay attention to it. And it will, at times, save your life.
Yeah. And I just want to add one more thing to that. The it part of this equation is your consciousness. Your consciousness is in absolute contact with everything in the universe all at the same time. And it is what's talking to you. Okay. Your guides can sometimes override it because they can get up to a part of your brain that you're not allowing from your consciousness, and your guides will speak up and say, hey, pay attention. Mm-hmm. But your consciousness is your conscience. It is your intuition. Absolutely. It knows what's going on and it will warn you if you're in contact with it.
I just wanted to add, I had a guest on here. Her name is Sandy Byrne. She's a medium from Ireland. And she actually told a story on the podcast that when she was younger in college, she was running down a dirt road and there weren't really many cars around. And then a car full of guys came. And just before they came, Spirit said to her, something in her head said, run. And she's thinking, why am I hearing this? And it kept saying, run. And she saw the car, it passed her, and she ran down into some cornfields and hid. And they came back looking for her. And I think they were going to probably take her or something. Something bad may have happened. But I think that's just an example of listening to your inner voice, right, with the warnings. Exactly. That's interesting. You're writing a book on that too, Preston. So we'll look forward to that. Another part of the question that Kat wonders is, can enough awakening happen to avoid catastrophic events?
No. And look at it this way. What's going to happen is already in motion. Our universe is a machine and it works a certain way. And you cannot stop our planetary system or galaxy or any other star for that matter from doing what it's going to do. The universe lives a certain amount of time and then it recycles itself and things go away and come back in another way in this third dimension. So we're living in a time right now where this is going to happen. Whether you like it or not, this is what you came here to absolutely employ to learn from anyway. You're not here by accident. You're here to learn this. What you have to keep in mind is that as you consciously awaken, what you need to do will come to you. It will help guide you through it. It will hold you aloft in it and take you away from panicking, being depressed, and all of that. It will show you what you need. That's why it's so important to wake up, because without it, you have no clue. You'll just be surprised and shocked and react negatively, probably. So the awakening part is important. It doesn't matter when it's coming, just start now. Every step you take toward that, trust me, it'll gain momentum. And the universe knows this, ET knows this, and it will start supplying you more and more and more and more with that ability. people realize that awakening is at an all-time high right now. And that's because everything's gearing up to push you into that path and to help you with it, to guide you with it, to hold you fast with it so that you understand what you're about to go through and then deal with it. I hope that helps.
You can't meditate and stop a volcano from erupting. What you can do is meditate and know when it's going to erupt and get out. Run.
Right. That makes sense. And then this is the last question from Kat. What do you think about the recent shooting down of the aerial objects?
It's a show. I have words for it, but I can't repeat them publicly. They're not very nice. But I will say this: it is a false flag. It's smoke and mirrors, and it's meant to control your emotions, to make you in fear of something. Please try to see it for what it really is. The government's not going to tell you the truth about anything anymore at all. They are locked and loaded on what they're doing. So you just don't worry about it. It can't affect you anyway, unless you were under the balloon. Those people had to deal with it. You don't. Don't worry about it. It will take care of itself one way or another. What's going to be is going to be. Breathe through it if you need to. This is where fear plays a huge role in how you process through this. If you take it without thinking about it, without trying to understand what's going on or knowing what's going on, you're going to freaking freak out. Don't. It's okay. Breathe. You're okay. Always remember that you're okay until you need to act. Like if you saw a balloon coming over your house, I would suggest moving out of the area temporarily, leave, because they could shoot one down over your head. The governments in the world are playing a dangerous game right now, and it is them. We're playing it, Russia's playing it, and so is China. And it is escalating. There are more jets in the air. There are more bombers in the air. They are now escalating the fear, and they're promoting a war to begin. Realize that and remember that you need to secure your spot. You need to pay attention to what you're doing or why, or you become cattle for the slaughter. Just keep it cool. Keep your eye in the sky if you have to, but don't believe a doggone thing they're saying, because they're not telling you the truth. And the end result of this is that they have already, when I say locked and loaded, they're going to do what they're going to do. All you can do is protect yourself. And that means spiritually, mentally, and physically. And all three of those things, if you work on those for yourself and anybody around you, is more important than worrying about what they're doing. They're doing what they're going to do. You can't stop them.
Yeah, they're not UFOs. They're not ET craft. I've been asked a lot about this recently, as you might imagine, and I can tell you why, flat out. One is that these objects that are being reported don't show what UFO researchers call the observables. They are not accelerating at high speeds, stopping on a dime, turning at right angles, all the things that UFOs can do. Second, we don't have the capability to shoot these things down. They know when anyone's shooting at them, they can move faster than a missile. Third, UFOs have been around for how long? Before ancient history, before recorded history. And now what? Last week or two, we've had 4 of these incidents. It doesn't make any sense. Another point is our government doesn't tell the truth on this subject. Don't look to them for answers. They're lying now. So, I mean, there's other reasons why it's clearly not what they are putting forth, that it's possibly ET. It's not. I do agree that this is probably part of propaganda and false flag. And the best thing you can do is just prepare yourself to as best as you can by having food and water. Honestly, getting away from too much crowds and city and protecting yourself and living without fear. And just recognize that you chose this to come down to earth. It's going to be a ride. Enjoy it.
Yeah, right. I heard on one of your podcasts, Preston, or maybe it was the YouTube channel, that a lady had a near-death experience and she found herself on a craft. Is it possible? How is that possible? I'm just curious. Or can you talk about that? Or
yeah, well, I think you're probably talking about the incident I actually already mentioned, Wendy.
Oh, okay, that's Wendy. Oh, I see, where they were healing her.
Yeah, they told her
Okay.
basically that she had died in this accident, and that she wasn't supposed to. And it's really interesting because there are researchers who have noticed a lot of commonalities between these two experiences and tried to conflate them together. They're not the same thing. Flat out, they just aren't. A near-death experience, yeah, you do go down a tunnel of light and you can find yourself in a place of healing and all these, glowing figures are around you. There's some interesting commonalities. And yes, you often come away spiritually transformed. And the UFO encounter does have a lot of those same things. And there are cases where I'm like, wow, there's, this is a little bit hard to figure out. Was this a near-death experience or a actual onboard experience? I know one lady, she had complete renal failure and ended up having an experience that she thought might be in some ways an NDE, but it wasn't. She later had a full onboard encounter and realized this was, in fact, UFO related. But yeah, I would caution researchers and people from, conflating, that's the best word I can put, these two phenomena into one. They're separate. An NDE is an NDE. An onboard experience is an onboard experience. A Bigfoot is a Bigfoot. A ghost is a ghost. There are some researchers who are trying to say that, oh, this is not ETs, it's an intelligence that wears a different mask and is regulating our belief system. My response to that is that's awfully anthropocentric. Where's your evidence for this? And where does that leave us as a species? Are we someone else's phenomena? No, I think we're dealing with extraterrestrials, people like us, and who are more like us than different, really. And yeah, there's paranormal aspects to a lot of this stuff. Contactees, as a rule, do have a wide variety of paranormal events. It's not unusual for them to have NDEs, astral projection, mediumship, seeing shadow people, all kinds of precognition and healing, and so forth. So this kind of makes it difficult, I think, sometimes to separate what's going on here. But yeah, so I think there are different phenomena.
When I was 6 years old, I came down with infectious mononucleosis. It ravaged my body and my spleen started swelling and my heart started failing. And my parents called the doctor, and back in those days, the doctor would come out to where you lived. And when he got there, he realized that I was going into failure. And he was concerned because my abdomen was swollen way up, and he knew that my spleen was involved. And while he was there, I coded, my spleen ruptured, and I coded. In other words, my heart stopped, and I saw myself out of my body, looking down at myself, and I could see everything in the room. And then I, in a split second, went somewhere else, and it was with people that I knew. I had some family around me, and there was one specific person behind me, and he said my name, and I knew who it was, but I couldn't connect the name to, I just knew I knew him really, really well. And I was told that I had a lot more going on than I realized. That he pointed out things, precog things for me to value and take with me when I went back. He wanted me to understand what my life was really going to be about. But he also whispered in my ear, you're being healed now, and you're still connected, and you're not staying here. And before I could argue, because I did not want to go at that point, it was too cool where I was, boom, I slammed back into my body at Mach 12. I have munched this over and over in my head because I remember it, every moment of it, in real time. As I'm speaking to you, the memory is fresh, vivid, and alive in me. And when I was older, in my 30s, I finally couldn't stand it anymore because I couldn't do it on my own. I could not come to the conclusion on my own. And my contact laughed at me, and he meant that to teach me something. And not until recently, in the last year of my life, do I understand now what was happening to me. ET knew I had died. They were with me. They kept in contact with me at all times. And they do travel. The higher beings, the fifth dimensional beings, can go where we go when we die. We're all one. They're all the same as us. And they can go back and forth to those realms. And Talata was right with me when it happened. He was behind me. He was the one telling me that they were taking care of it. They helped my body heal. My physical body was healed by them. My spirit who my consciousness really is, was being guided by him and telling me to understand what was happening. And I had to learn a lot from that. I've drawn a lot of conclusions from this and hearing everybody else talking. ET will not take your spirit from your body. They will not take your consciousness on board. That's against the rules everywhere across the board. That is abduction. Who you really are has to give consent. That's your consciousness. And they have no right to take you, and they will not. But your physical body, with your consciousness giving permission, they'll pull you aboard, physically pull you aboard. It is a physical experience with them. You cannot be switched with any other entity in your body at all, because your DNA is a code, and anything that breaks that code or invades it, it will end your life. Your body will stop, and your own existence will move out of the way, and your body will expire. And that means it can't be attained by anything. Just like the egg barriers itself when the sperm enters it, your body barriers in death. In other words, no other soul can come in, because your prana, the key that holds the spirit in, is now released with you. It's complicated, and there's a lot of learning involved in this situation. And I just want everybody to understand that ET can heal you. They can see you on the other side. They do escort people in death to the other side. They're that capable. That's how advanced they are. It's not one thing. It's different situations that they're capable of traversing distance, space, time, all of it dimensionally to facilitate helping. And it's important to understand that that's how involved this all is. When you wake up, you'll learn this too. You'll have experiences that teach you these things and show you what they really mean. And I hope I made sense to everybody.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Dolly and Preston. And I wondered a question for those that believe in reincarnation, could they reincarnate onto our Earth, or can we reincarnate into them? Could it happen both ways? Or
we can reincarnate anywhere in the universe where life exists, because DNA is universal. And you reincarnate toward your DNA, and you build it from wherever you're at. Your prana uses the area that it's in to build the body, okay, when conception occurs, because you're there at conception. And it's your key that unlocks the DNA to do what it's going to do. And yes, you can, like, if I pass from now, I don't plan on coming back here. Nope, I'm done. And I want to go somewhere else, and I know where that is, and it's nowhere near this planet. So yes, we can be born anywhere. All the lessons we learn are important, and they can be learned in any way in this entire universe. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to just make a statement about that, past lives and reincarnation, because that is part of the UFO contact experience for sure. In the Tahunga Canyon contacts, written by Ann Ruffle and D. Scott Rogo, they told Sarah Shaw, one of the contactees, that she was one of them in a past life. This happened with one of Edith Fiore's clients. She's another UFO researcher. They told him, you are one of us. Told that to a number of her clients, actually. I've interviewed people who've had that experience, who have actual memories of being ETs. This is not unusual. Reincarnation has been basically proven through the research of many researchers, but I'll point to Dr. Ian Stevenson, who did just unbelievably detailed research with people who claim this, and they knew stuff they could not know any other way. Past lives are real, and you will see with contactees, I always ask them, do you have any memories of a past life? And they always say yes. Well, I won't say always, but yes, pretty much. We all have past lives, and yes, you can reincarnate, and probably have, as various forms of what we call extraterrestrials. So big yes to that, and it's really cool.
that's cool. I just wondered for my own question, when a female here gets, pregnant, it's a 9-month thing. Well, how does it work over with the ETs? Do they have?
They have the same thing. If we have it, they have it. They eat like we do. They breathe like we do.
Okay.
They swallow, they drink, they poop and pee. They have sex the same way. They're exactly the same. They just look a little different, that's all. But they're humanoid, and that is the DNA working, all of it. Every animal has to survive by imbibing food to run the engine that you're living in. Every animal has to excrete toxins. Every animal has to breathe the air to keep the blood pumping through those veins. Your heart is the core or the center of you. Your heart starts first. The electrical activity in your heart begins at conception, and that's your soul, your consciousness entering into that embryonic form to begin the process. So yeah.
Is their lifespan different than ours? Like, how long do they generally live for?
No, they okay.
Mhm.
Every ethnicity has parameters of existence. In other words, on this planet, we're gravity heavy. We have a lot of disease here that's living in our atmosphere, and we affect each other a certain way, and it's our DNA acclimated to it. And like, if you live in the sun all the time, you're gonna have more melanin in your skin. If you're not in the sun all the time, you're gonna lighten up and maybe have light hair because the melanin's in your hair as well, or lighter eyes. Same thing with them, and we all acclimate differently. The grays, I can speak for the grays because I've been there, have less gravity than we do, and they tend to be taller and thinner. They have different bone structure, and it's the same kind of bones, but they're a little bit stronger, and they can take a lot more use on them, because there's not that much gravity going on for them like it is us. Their hearts don't work as hard. As a result, we live between 80 and 100 years old on average now because of our our health. We eat right, we do things for ourselves that are more safe for our bodies than ever before. They have really good places to live, clean, non-toxic, they eat the right food, they breathe purer air than we do, and they're very long-lived as a result. Their DNA replicates itself to allow longer life. They're not being pounded like we are. So they live about 1,000 years, the tall grays do. Mama, my liaison, is over 800 years old. She's about 800, probably now about 830, 31. And she looks younger than me now, which kind of freaks me out. So it's where you live, what's happening to you that makes your DNA react a certain way to give you a lifespan. Ours is pretty short here because we live in a hard life here. Theirs is longer because they don't physically live a harder life than we do, and they have a little bit less gravity.
Oh, I see.
I would like to talk a little bit about that. Longevity here on this planet has increased. Right. It's just about double over the last couple of 100 years. Right. And if you look at some of the ancient writings, there's some indication we were at one point much longer lived. There's a guy in Florida who was taken on board, the ETs came to his room, and he's like, if you're going to take me again, please heal my hernia. And they're like, okay, we'll heal this condition of which you speak. And then he asked him, why are you taking me? What is this? Why? They said, we are interested in your genetic potential to live a long time. Turns out his grandfather was 106, still spry, still alive and kicking, totally healthy, had a good longevity in his family. They're very much aware of this. And if you look on our planet, I mean, the bristlecone pine is one of the longest lived trees, certainly. We have, tortoises live a very long time. There's a type of ivy, which in a way doesn't actually, it's practically immortal. We are immortal. This is an important point. There are enlightened masters on this planet who have surmounted death and have what we would call a rainbow body and basically ascend to the other side. They don't die like most people do in terms of shedding a body. And we don't have to do that. Most of us will, but we don't die ever. We are eternal beings. When people ask me how old I am, I kind of laugh and say, well, infinity, because you are too. We all are infinite beings. We're an integral part of this universe. We need to start looking at death in a different way and understand that it is just a transition. It's walking through a door. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a very healing event.
Right.
And you'll come right back if you want. Usually you'll take a little time to rest, from what I understand and have researched, because this is the biggest fear people have, is fear of death. And we don't need to have that. We really don't.
Right. I agree. And I just wonder, is their society different than ours? Because with ours, it seems like we're limited and a lot of people have restrictions here.
Well, we're limited because we have masters. Their society is what you would call like a consensus or a communion of agreement. I like Whitley Strieber's book, Communion. He was describing it beautifully. They don't have government like we do. We put that name out there. It's our ego describing them. It's not true. They're wide open psychic. Everybody hears everybody. They all know the truth of everything. And they have a consensus in that those who are the wisest, those who know the most, will present everybody with viable, valuable information. And then everybody agrees that that's the way we're going to go. There is no ego in their society. They don't have governments because of that. They have superseded us in their concept of what love is and how to treat one another, to the point that consensus is why they act the way they do. If you have somebody who varies from the norms of their society, they are treated not with malice or punitive or anything like that. Pretty much everybody just kind of like goes quiet on them and looks at them and says, what are you doing? And then expects them, because they can hear each other think, sit there and think, validly think about what it was that just happened. What did they do? And is this okay for them to be acting this way? And give them a chance to work out their own issue, and they do. I was taught this way by them. Every time I made a dumb move emotionally or physically, I was given a chance to realize what it was that I did, how it affected everybody, and what could I do to make amends and change how I reacted. And that's exactly the society. That's how they operate. They're scientific, they're knowledge-based, they love everything, and they live in joy. I really wish.
I love what Dolly's saying, because I had questions about this for a long time, because it was very hard to find good information on, like, how do these people live? And I've seen no evidence of money, no evidence of a federalized system, no galactic federation. Let me repeat that. No galactic federation, no kings, no queens. And yeah, elders, I have heard that. And if you really want to see how ETs live, look to some of our indigenous cultures. I would point to the Australian Aborigines, who don't have words for stealing or competition or kings or queens or anything like that. They look to their elders for knowledge. Some of the Native American cultures are very much close to, I think, Dolly might have comment on this, close to how the ETs conduct themselves. There aren't, people who have higher ranks than others. There are people who perform functions. Everyone gets to do what they want to do, but everyone's cooperative. Everyone works for the good of each other. This is what I've come to believe and see in terms of the first-hand contactee accounts. It's not at all like we do it here. It's much different, except for some of these indigenous cultures. People talk about the Australian Aborigines real quick as being a primitive culture. And I have to kind of laugh. I'm like, well, no, they're the longest lived culture on this planet, and they got it right. They loved each other. They operated in love, truth, and compassion. That was their guiding force. And I think that's how the ETs do it. They don't have kings and queens and governors and, higher ranking or lower ranking. Everyone is equal.
Mm-hmm. No, that's nice. And I kind of wish we could live like that, where you could just have the freedom if you want to go for a walk, or you don't have to be, tied to all this, the IRS and, the government and working. So sounds like a very peaceful society.
Yes.
And I can see probably why they live to be about 1,000 years old in that kind of circumstance.
Yeah, much less stress.
This question comes from Becky. She wonders if they have animals, their pets, the Greys.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. They have animals like we do. And I asked this question because I'm an animal lover. And I said, when we have to leave here, I don't have to leave my babies behind me, do I? And they were like, no, everybody gets to bring their animals with them. And I'm like, oh, thank God, because it would kill me. It would destroy me if I couldn't have my babies with me. And they're short-lived, but you love them like they belong to you. You know, you belong to them. And they said no. And as I've been learning about their culture and living with them, I see that they have animals everywhere, all over the place. They create spaces for them to live unconditionally and in nature, and they interact with them. Some of them have them in their homes. Yeah, they love animals, all animals. They're part of our existence, and we're their caretakers, and they really believe that.
Oh, that's cool. And then this question comes from Bobby. He wonders how many people they have. And I assume they're on a planet, right?
Yeah, well, there are many planets. There are many different ethnicities of ET, and each one of them are in their own systems. And they have, you know, people on the planet. They've all learned to live at that level of existence, at that level of maturity and understanding. They don't live like we do at all. They're not thing accumulators. They don't need a lot of stuff to survive. Their mental abilities are more important to them than having things. So they live in sustainable environments. And their technology is so advanced that it doesn't take much for that to work at all. And they enjoy nature more than anything. Where they live, nature is part of it. On the ET homeworld, the school that I went to, there was a giant tree. And I learned that they were all over the planet like that. And why be on the ground when you can be in the sky up in a tree with breathing beautiful air and having beautiful skies above you and hear the wind? You know, they said that's the environment that you sustain, so that learning is so much better. And that's how they are. They don't have any need to be in a dwelling 24/7, and they don't play video games because their minds are that advanced. They don't need them. Anything they think, feel, or do or want to do is at their command. They're light workers, and so, you know, the knowledge just seems to be the most important thing to them. And the things that they see and the places that they go are way better than going to the movies, way better. That they don't have to weave stories to be entertained. They are entertained by reality and what's really going on. So
I see. And this question comes from Mary. She wonders if Earth is the worst place that has life.
no, we're not the only ones. There are other places in the galaxy and other galaxies where the worlds are the hardest schools of life. Yeah. Okay. You're in a tough place. Yeah. But we're not the only ones.
And then I just wondered, this comes from me. What is the Delphi system? And I don't know if you can explain that, or
the Delphi system. Oh, let's see if I can explain this. When we look up at the skies, we see constellations. Mm-hmm. And the Delphi system, if you look up, you see the seven sisters, the Pleiades. Okay. The Delphi system, as our crow would fly, is behind it. Okay. And we all are moving constantly. So we change positions with each other on a regular basis. It's mathematical. We can plot where they're at any given time from this dimension. Okay. So if you were to look at the Pleiades and go through the Pleiades to the other side of it, you would see the Delphi system. Now there is a star in the Delphi system that we can actually visualize, but it looks like it's to the left of it. Okay. It's not, it's directly behind it. But we're looking at perspective. So that's where the Delphi system is. And there is a water world there. It's huge, and it's beautiful. And a lot of people on this planet think they come from the Pleiades because that's what they were taught. But those who are here trying to teach them where you're from were pointing at the Pleiades going, it's there. But they couldn't communicate to them that it's behind there. There was no way for them to have that kind of advanced knowledge at the time. And those people are the Southeast Asians, the Polynesians. They all are related to the Delphi system. So
interesting. And in the book, you went somewhere where they had vegetation. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's well, there's multiple places like that. The one that impressed me the most was the tall gray's homeworld, and it's in the Orion systems. And their planet is huge and it has less gravity. They have trees that are, you know where Devil's Tower is? You know, it was in that movie. That's a dead tree right there from a time period, probably 3 turns of 12,000 years back. When our Earth gravity was about the time of dinosaurs were on the planet then. The trees were that big because there was hardly any gravity there. It got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's not just the trees that are big. They have other plants and flowers and all kinds of things that are ginormous. And I was agog. I mean, I would go walking on paths all the time when I could, and just I would sit under ferns like they were trees.
Wow.
The smells there were incredible. I mean, you just went in there, it was a sensory explosion of beauty. And oh my God, look at this. It's way out of my, box of crayons when I first saw all this, and I was just amazed by it. And there are other planets in our galaxy as well that are like that, as well as everywhere else in the universe. It's tremendously beautiful.
Yeah, this is why Dolly, picked the title Symmetry for the title of the book on her case, because I was going to call it Dolly Among the Stars, because I thought that was a cute and fun title and really descriptive. But it's Dolly's story. I really wanted her to have input. And she's like, oh, let's call it Symmetry. And I'm like, why? That's an interesting title. She says, well, listen, this is one of the main lessons they taught me. There's symmetry to life throughout the universe. Yeah, there are other planets out there. They are filled with human beings, being humanoids of all kinds, and trees, and cows, and cats, and dogs, and pigs, and all the animals we see here on this planet have their variation everywhere else. We are not the center of the universe. Science is proving that over and over and over again. And that's what I love so much about Dolly's story. I know there are other people out there who have the same things to say she does, but it's very hard to step forward in today's society. This is one of the reasons Dolly did come forward with her story, to help correct the many misconceptions and the fear-based perspective surrounding UFO contact. But I know other people who are saying these same exact things. They're just anonymous. They're very quiet about it. They're not stepping forward in any real way for the most part. But contact is far, far more common than people realize. It is widespread. And yeah, there is life throughout the universe. It's all genetic. We are all, when that message, we are all one, is for real. The Greys are essentially humans. We all have and share the same genetics.
Cool. this I like that. Thank you. This question comes from Max. It says, can the Greys or the ETs mate with humans, and can they have an offspring?
I knew that was coming. Yep. Yes, absolutely. We can breed back and forth with one another. We have from the same genome, and yes, we're compatible. Yes.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it's not. I have genetics that are current from them. I have some tall gray, and I have some what you would call tall white in my genetics. And when you hybridize things, we seem to think that hybridization causes you not to be able to reproduce, like a mule. I mean, that's not true in everything. We do have hybrids here, like cats and dogs, who hybridize in their genome and look different from one another, but they're the same, ethnicity. I am one of those. I am a hybrid ethnic human, current human, and then I have some other genetics going on that were bred into me. The reason that this happens is for a couple of reasons. Some of the Greys started having issues with viability of sperm, or women who were viable enough to give birth. And it became an issue. And it started in the 50s, and in the 60s, everybody started noticing it here as well. We had men who were, losing their sperm counts, and they were trying to come up with reasons why. It's still a problem. Genetically, polycystic ovarian syndrome, problems with your different complexes in your body can cause you to lose the ability to reproduce. And they decided to broaden our genomic base. In other words, we all know that if you breed with your brother, sister, there's going to be anomalies, and it's not good. So the more diverse your genetics are, the better strengthens your genome. So they rightly started breeding back and forth with us again to help them and to help us as well. They're not changing our DNA. We all have the same DNA. We're just strengthening our genome with them doing that.
Okay. And then he also wondered if they do mate and have an offspring and it's here on Earth, would they look like a human? But
It
just
depends.
oh,
Just like,
interesting.
if a mama's a white person and the other person is of African ethnicity, your kids have a chance of being all white, all African looking, or somewhere in between that. And it's like us. So it's a roulette wheel spin every time you create a new life. Some of them look more like them than us, and they do not stay here. And then some of them look more like us than them, and they stay here. It was a gamble when my mother got pregnant because they were not sure what was going to happen with me, and I was born very human looking, although I had some weird things going on. And so they didn't take me back. They let me stay with my family here. Genetically, I'm not 100% my mother. I do have strains of genetic coding that come from somewhere else, and they're like, you know, they know this about me. There are a lot more like that on this planet, like me. And to be honest with you, we're all hybrids. We're all genetically related to them, and we've been breeding back and forth forever. You know, we're their children. They're our progenitors. We're all related. So,
Yeah,
yes.
I want to comment on this too, because when I got involved in this field, I was very resistant to it. I didn't believe in UFOs. I had seen Star Trek and the ETs on Star Trek, and I'm like, well, they're all human looking. This is ridiculous. ETs would have claws and tentacles, and they would be the blob. It would be something we couldn't imagine. This was my kind of just egocentric thinking that wasn't based on reality whatsoever. And if you look at the reports that are coming in from people who had contact, you will see that it's universally humanoid and often human. And I'm going to underline that. Some of the ETs people encounter, and this is very common, are human. They look just like us. And this is, there are people who encounter rays who describe them as looking very human. And in fact, if they were to wear a hat and sunglasses, they could walk down the street and probably have. And yes, they have. Let me just put it that way, because there are cases of this. So this raises very serious questions about the theory of evolution as put forth by Charles Darwin. This raises very serious questions about who we are, our relationship to ETs. And the fact is, we are all extraterrestrial. We really are. The human form is universal. It's throughout the universe. I asked Dolly about this. She's like, yeah, there are people on other planets that look just like us. So where does that leave us? Humans did not evolve from monkeys. They just didn't. Humans have been around for a very, 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 very long time, much more than the 40,000 years presented by mainstream anthropology.
Right. That's interesting. And then can you talk about the Black Knights? Do we have time for that, or is it a long?
They're sentinels. Because of what's happening to our solar system and in the galaxy, they're watching the situation. They have eyes on our entire solar system. And it's not, please don't be egocentric and think that they're focused generally just on us. They're watching all the planets and how they're reacting in this situation. When you don't know this, you can look it up. All the planets in our solar system are switching their poles, and they're changing. You can physically see them changing. Jupiter is the biggest one. The big red spot is no longer the big red spot. Their weather has totally changed. That's example one of why our government's telling us that we're causing climate change is the biggest malarkey I've ever heard in my life. It is the situation that's going on, not that. This planet's been around a long time, and it's gone through upheaval after upheaval after upheaval. We do not amount to anything on it. We do not change it that much. What we do amount to is toxicity levels. We pollute ourselves. That's what's wrong with us. We do things that are so damaging to us that are unbelievable. That's our fault. That's our problem. That should be our concern. But everything else is just what's occurring around us. are the universe, all solar systems live by a set of rules, hardcore mainframe rules, and this is the way it's all acting. You cannot stop a planet from doing what it's going to do, because the bigger picture is it's in a solar system with a great big sun that absolutely affects it, and you can't stop that sun from doing what it's going to do at all, ever. All the suns in the universe are that way, and we have instance after instance after instance of that. Astronomically, they see this. We have huge nurseries, star nurseries abounding throughout the universe. One's coming at us right now is Andromeda. The Andromeda system is not habitable. There are no habitable systems in the Andromeda galaxy. It is a star nursery, and it's going to eat our galaxy eventually. It's coming for us. This is this cycle of life. And if you look at how your life evolves here, how you're born, you live, and you pass away, and you move on, it's the template for how the universe operates, pure and simple.
Right. And then just kind of closing out, you mentioned the CMEs are probably going to hit in the next maybe 2 to 5 years. I know it's hard to predict.
Okay,
yeah.
Let me explain.
Mhm.
CMEs hit us every day. Some of them more often than others. We're in solar maximum. It means our sun is producing them on a very regular basis. And every time one magnetically connect with the sunspots, they produce a plasma ejection. That is a coronal mass ejection. That CME is always going to be on the sun, whatever the sun produces. At maximum, they're pretty frequent. What is affecting us is our magnetosphere is down, and those ejections coming at us are not being stopped. That's the problem. That's why our planet is acting the way it is. That's what's happening to us. So before our poles started changing, we could buffet away all of that and radiation and all those ejections and solar winds at us. Our magnetosphere will push it away. But now our magnetosphere is open about 40%, and we're taking hits from them. Now they're more frequent, and we're taking more frequent hits. In the last 2 weeks, we've had massive numbers of them. We had, within a 48-hour period, we had 7, and this is in the last 3 days. We had one yesterday or the day before that is now going to impact us tonight. You're going to see, or tomorrow morning early. It was a pretty high-class CME, and it is Earth-facing. We're going to take the full brunt of it. It's not in the X-class range, it's in the M-class range. They rate them according to the power of them. And you're going to see electronic devices messing up. You're going to see power failures around the globe, things like that. More storms, more electricity, more lightning, more volcanoes, all of that because of it. It's a science you should learn. I'm not kidding you. You should learn to understand what this is. I want to give you a website on YouTube. It's Suspicious Observers. And Ben Davidson is really, really awesome. He's intelligent. He has an eidetic memory. He doesn't forget anything. And he's like an Einstein in his field. And he's written books for universities. He knows what he's talking about. And he teaches this science on YouTube. He has a whole playlist. And instead of me sitting here trying to teach you all this stuff all at one time, I suggest you go there and go through the playlist and watch it so that you can learn what we're looking at. It will explain it all to you in detail and understanding graphics, everything. He spent a lot of time in the last 10 years doing this. And so it's Suspicious Observers at YouTube. And look them up, watch the playlist, learn what's really happening to us. There's another one, he's an astrophysicist, and he has a channel on YouTube as well. It's called Sky Scholar, Dr. Robitaille. And he is an astronomer who has the gift of teaching astronomy to the common man, to everyday people. And I would watch that as well. This is all information that will help you override what you're hearing the media say, because they're flat out lying to you. You don't know anything about earth science. You don't know anything about astronomy for real because you're not being taught the truth. Listen to those two. It's a good bet you'll go, oh, wow, it'll help.
Okay, that sounds good. But we should be preparing for things to be knocked out because we're going back. We could go back to the Stone Age.
I would worry mostly right now about what the governments are planning, honestly. If you plan for that, you'll be ready for the rest. Our governments, they're about to starve everybody. They've taken out our food supply. They've taken farmers away from being able to grow crops because they don't have enough nitrates, which come from where the war is right now, to supply their farms to grow. Mexico has stopped allowing us to send them GMO vegetables, which is all we've been producing. So now the farmers are freaking out. They can't even retool for that. And they don't have enough nitrates to retool for that either. There's going to be some serious famine going on. We have less medicine, medical people. We have less food supply. The supply chains are breaking down. Really look at what's going on around you. Prepare for that right now. Make sure you've got enough water. Make sure you have enough food. Make sure that you have a generator. Do whatever you can. Go to solar, whatever you can, where you are in place. And then there's a war. They're getting ready to throw a war at us. If you've ever been alive during a war, you know 3 things. Everything stops when a war is going on, a bad war. And this one is going to involve us, and it's going to be personal. So we all have to deal with what the stupid world governments are throwing at us. And this is it. It's all over the world like this. All of them are doing it to all their people at the same time. So think about that first. Prepare. In that preparation, you're getting ready for the big one. Trust me. Okay. If you have food, if you have water, and you have the knowledge it takes to sustain yourselves, that's the most important first lesson you can learn. Go there. Do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anything
Welcome.
else you would like to add before we go? Or
I have a message. It's from Talata.
Okay.
He went out of his way. Like I said, I'm good with numbers, but English is not my forte. And he dictated it to me. Okay. I have to pull it up for you. And
Awesome.
word for word, it's in the book Symmetry at the very beginning of the book. Most of you who've read the book know it already. And I'm going to repeat it to you. Hold on a second. See if I got it. Oh, that's not it. I have a giant phone and I take too many pictures, and that is my curse. I should know better. Let's see. Nope.
That's okay, Dolly. We all do
And I
that.
usually look it up. It's in the very first pages of the book. And oh, here we go. Okay, you ready? This is a
Yeah.
direct message. Talata is the entity that indwells the craft that I fly. He is a 5th dimensional, non-corporeal entity. And I can't say his whole name because it's too bloody long. And I started picking one part of his name that I could reproduce, and that's the word Talata. And he let me get away with calling him that. Okay, so here it is. Be strong in love. Love is what carries through. Love is what heals. Love is the strength of life. Love has no limit. Therefore, let love become who you are. Let love evolve to its fruition. Let the light that is love burn bright. Let its wisdom guide you to higher understanding. Let its power move you to teach its power to others. Love. Be strong in love. Important.
That's really beautiful.
No. Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That's a great note to leave this on. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate you guys being here today.
I like
Thanks a lot.
Preston's sign off too, by the way. His is important too. You say yours. Go for it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would just underline what Dolly's saying. Let love guide you, leave fear behind, and remember, I mean, this sounds like a lot for some people. I think it's good news. I'm not being facetious, I really do. Life on Earth has been very difficult for how many hundreds, thousands of years? We're not supposed to live this way. We're not supposed to live under the yoke of slavery and work all day long just to survive. We're not supposed to live with greed and corruption and divisiveness and hatred and war and disease. We're supposed to live harmoniously with loving each other, working towards truth and knowledge. And this is an opportunity. Can you imagine what it would be like to have UFOs come down in large numbers and scoop you up and say, okay, you have a second chance. You can move to a planet where there is no pollution, where you don't have to pay taxes, where money is not the ruling force. So this is a wonderful opportunity for humanity to leave, bad patterns and old ways behind. I'm pretty excited about it actually, because yeah, some people might die, but again, death is not the end at all. We do it over and over and over and over again. So I think it's good news. I really do.
Me too. This is great. I'm so glad you guys came. I sent you a calendar invite, and then the Zoom invite, I accidentally put PM instead of AM. So it would have been 2 a.m. your time.
It's okay. I thought that was funny, honestly. I was like,
it
oh,
was
wow, we're going to be
funny.
up all night.
Preston goes, that's kind of out of our scope of time. Do you have anything earlier? I meant to say 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. your time. Or 2 p.m. not a.m. Yeah, but we always have a lot of fun, and I'm so glad you were here. And I'll be honest, I still have a ton of questions to ask you, but I know we've been here 2 hours, so I don't want to keep you, but I'd love to have you back on again, maybe in the next few months.
Okay.
Appreciate this. This is
We're good.
great. Thank you.